Hey everybody, it's Meteorologist Brad Panovich here in the First Warn Storm Center tonight. Got to talk about the rain heading in. I've been watching a lot of the questions on our chat, and I actually have it pulled up over here. So please let me know if my mic is overmodulated, because this mic tends to be pretty crazy. I can turn it down a little bit. So tonight, the good news about tonight, this is not going to be anything like the previous severe weather events we've had. So not as extensive, not as bad, but we're going to make up for that with a lot of rainfall and a lot of wind. And I'm going to get into some of the things we're going to see tonight. So let's get right to the flash flood watch, which is in effect for the mountains and foothills. Though honestly, this could have been expanded for parts of the foothills down into the Piedmont, because when you look at the flash flood guidance, I'm going to show you what it looks like tonight. I don't know why it's not plotting here. That's weird. Really bizarre. This was plotting earlier, but for some reason it's not plotting. Let's see what's going on here. Which is really weird, because earlier the whole western 2/3 of our area was under the medium threat for flash flooding. I don't know why it's gone. It looks like we maybe lost some data there. Either, it doesn't really matter. Either way you look at it, we're going to see some flooding situations across especially the western half of our viewing area. Now, this is the water vapor loop. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is there's some really cool things to see on this, and why this is going to be such a big deal. This thing is actually going to shift back towards the west. And we call that a negative tilt. And what I mean by that is, you see that spin on the map right there? When a storm is up and down straight like that, we call it neutral tilt. When it tilts this way to the right, that's called a positive tilt. But when storms tilt back this way, that's called a negative tilt. So you can see the low pressure's back here, and the front is like this. So the trough is tilted back in this direction. Now what that does is it takes this big plume of moisture, and instead of just pushing it through, it tends to pivot and wrap around the low, and so that tends to sit the system right over here. But it also does something to the winds we call backing, which causes severe weather, but I think that's less of an issue than this thing slowing down. So let's get right to the radar, and I can show you what's going on the radar. You can see across the Piedmont it's scattered, but back through the foothills, especially here in parts of Burke County, from the upper part of Cleveland County through southern Burke County, so South Mountains up through the Morganton area, Eichard, Lenoir, Sawmills, up towards the Yadkin Valley. We've got this band, which is just essentially kind of sitting over the same spot, producing 1 to 2 inches of rain per hour. So there's not a ton of lightning in this system, but when I look at the rainfall rates, if I go in here, I'm going to plot a couple of these rainfall rates. This area in red right here, that's about 2 inches an hour. So it's really coming down heavy in here, and it could sit over this area for a couple of hours. Typically when we say, hey, it's raining 1 to 2 inches an hour, but it's not going to rain an hour, this one will. It could sit there for a couple hours. So some locations could possibly get 2 to 4 inches of rain. This extends back into the upstate. So as I loop this, notice how the storms are moving north, the individual cells. I'll come back out to the monitor. So the individual cells are tracking up. Let me see if I can tilt this. It might be a little bit easier to see. So these individual cells are moving this way, but the whole line isn't really moving. It's just kind of sitting there. So we call this training. And the reason we call it training, it's like train cars on a train track. This is the train track, and each car is a storm or a heavy downpour, and just like they're full of stuff on the train tracks, this is full of water, so it dumps over the same spot again and again and again as the train car passes over that. So this training effect causes flash flooding, and that's probably the biggest concern I think we're going to see tonight across this area. Now we can look at the velocity data. There are some winds in there that are gusting 30-40 miles per hour, but earlier we had some rotation in some of these storms, and thankfully I have not seen a lot of that return, which is good news. But just to show you some of these winds in here, I'm going to plot some of these velocity. And again, these are not at the surface, but about 5,000 feet up. So it kind of gives you an idea. Some of that wind can mix down to the surface and cause some flooding issues and some damaging winds as well down to surface. So let's go hour by hour. We'll do our Futurecast here. Here we are, 8:30 in the evening. I'll put it right there. I'm going to put this thing forward a couple hours here. We'll go to about 10 o'clock. The heavy rain starts moving into the Piedmont, but notice there's a couple separate waves. There's a wave back here, there's a wave in here, and it looks like a wave in here. And this thing's going to be around all night. So before you go to bed tonight, this isn't going to be a lot of thunder booming. The thunder and lightning won't wake you up. What's likely going to wake you up is going to be the sound of rain going against the windows, coming down the downspouts, and probably wind. So if you think about the wind and rain, kind of like not that this is a tropical system, but a tropical storm or hurricane, kind of the roaring sound and just rain hitting everything, that's the sounds you're going to hear tonight. And the winds will really pick up as this moves through. Even though these won't be thunderstorms per se, there won't be thunder and lightning, there will be very gusty winds mixing down to the surface. And in that sense, it is a lot like a tropical system. You think about this as a spiral band that you see around a tropical system. When you get the heavy burst of rain, you tend to get some really strong winds down at the surface. So that's kind of what I anticipate as we go into midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2:30, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Look how long it takes to move across here. And remember, it's dumping 1 to 2 inches of rain per hour. Then by 4 o'clock, it's starting to move through Richmond County. Rockingham should be clear by 5 or 6. And then it's moving into eastern North Carolina, where it's likely still going to be severe, and maybe even more severe after sunrise tomorrow. So something to keep an eye on for people watching in eastern North Carolina, because I do think we will see some strong storms with this as it moves east. You can see the line stretching from Virginia down to Southport. So just a heads up in eastern North Carolina, this could perk back up after the sun comes up tomorrow. So our main threats, I'll show you these again: wind and flooding, but this is what we call a non-zero tornado threat. What does that mean? It means the threat is not zero, but it's also pretty low. That means I would not rule out an isolated spin-up tornado, though. We're talking isolated weak tornadoes, and we could get a warning or two. We've seen one so far tonight. That's kind of what I expect, maybe one more. And the area of greatest concern is actually near the South Carolina and North Carolina border, and then tomorrow that threat would shift into eastern North Carolina. Now the winds. This is the thing about the winds. Here are the wind gusts so far today. These wind gusts have occurred without the heavy rain yet. These are the gusts that occurred during the afternoon. 37 mile per hour wind gust in Charlotte, 29 Rock Hill, 37 Chester, 37 Rockingham, 36 up in Boone. But watch what happens tonight. I'm going to show you a Futurecast of the winds tonight as the line of showers and storms move through. So these will pick up even outside of storms. So you could see trees come down, power lines, especially when the ground gets saturated, lawn furniture, you got the trampoline, the hammock in the backyard. So if you have time, get outside, secure that stuff. It's going to be blowing around, trash cans. I mean, look at some of these wind speeds. At times here, we saw a gust well over 40, and that's not even with the thunderstorms. That's just with the front. And as it pushes through, finally it moves to the east and things will calm down tomorrow morning. The other big factor here, rainfall. Rainfall is a big concern here. I expect to see the rainfall totals range from as much as an inch or as little as an inch is up to 4 inches. So the thing about these Futurecast guidance, sometimes we show you these and people see their town and they immediately go, oh, we're going to get 2.68 inches. This is just like snow totals, folks. There is no way those exact totals are happening. Why do we show them though? I want to give you an idea of the range. So when people see this, I don't want Lincoln to think I'm getting exactly 2.68. I want you to think somewhere in this vicinity, let's do like a 30, 40 mile radius, somebody's going to get that amount. So it's a general idea of the heaviest rainfall in the area. So you could see pretty much everybody's over an inch, but a few spots are near 2 or 3 inches. So somewhere in here, wherever that band, the training sets up, and it could likely be up here in the mountains and foothills or here in the Piedmont, probably going to see 1 to as much as 4 inches. I will not be shocked if somebody gets a 4-inch amount. And a lot of this is going to happen in a 1, 3, or 6 hour time span, which for flash flooding is the guidance we use. So pretty high flash flood threshold for these areas. I potentially could see some creeks and streams coming up real quickly and flooding out. Now, one of the things I show often for people who are concerned about tornadoes, because people ask me continuously about tornadoes, even though the threat is small, the rotational tracks kind of show us where we have rotating storms. There's a little hint of it with the line, but just nothing really. This is not a big tornado outbreak. This is nothing that would be significant. And remember, the average tornado around here is only about 50 yards wide. So think about where you are on this map. There's one tiny, like 50-yard wide swath of damage somewhere in here. Your chances of being under that are really small. Your chances of being hit by this wall of water and wind is 100,000 times greater. So the threat level, you got to kind of prioritize where these are. You certainly want to be cautious for tornadoes, but you got to remember your threat of heavy rain and wind is like 100 times higher tonight. So be cautious for a possible tornado warning, and when you really need to be worrying more about the wind and the rain, because when you look at the rain, I'll widen out the radar again, everybody is going to be hit by that as that system moves to the east. Now let me widen this out a little bit and we'll show you the radar. I'm going to show you a wide view just to show you, the back edge of this thing is back here in Tennessee. The actual cold front looks to be, let me grab my cold front here. Looks to be, why is the cold front red? Somebody's miscoloring all my fronts here. Here we go. So here's the cold front, roughly in there. So until that cold front moves through, we're going to have the potential for, some strong storms along that front, even though we've got this heavy rain out ahead of it moving through. So over the next several hours, it's primarily heavy rain, but whenever that cold front gets here, when that cold front moves through, there will be enough heat and humidity still left in the overnight hours that there could be a narrow line of showers and storms along that front as it pushes through. And that's the thing that's going to pass through around 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. So hope that helps you get you through tonight. I'll be on tonight at 11. Don't worry, I'm going to be here all night. If something happens, we'll definitely be online because most of you probably won't have your TV on in the middle of the night, so we'll try to stream again. That's my goal, is to leave my streaming setup ready to go in case we're there in the middle of the night. And just FYI, I'll put up the timing one more time. I think this really helps you kind of gauge. We're already past 6 o'clock, so obviously the heavy rain is already here at almost 9 o'clock. So now we're kind of in the heart of this where the heavy rain, wind, and flooding will be a concern. And notice the time cut off there about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, I think, is when things will finally start to calm down. So hopefully, I'm going to glance through here real quickly. Not too many questions out there. If you have any questions, I'll try to go back and answer them. But again, I saw somebody say, hey, I don't think this is going to be that bad, or, I heard it wasn't. I'm just telling you what I'm telling you. I always hate when people say they say, or somebody said, or I heard this. I can only speak for myself, and this is what I'm saying. So we are going to see heavy rain and wind tonight. This is not a huge severe weather event. Remember the threat overall. I'll go back to our outlook. On a scale from 1 to 4, we do our low, medium, high, and extreme. We are in this low risk. So can we get a strong storm or two? Obviously in this setup you can get that, but overall the threat is on the low end of the scale, which means there's only about a 5 to 10% chance of you seeing a severe thunderstorm within 25 miles of your location. That's damaging winds or hail or tornadoes. So overall the threat is relatively low. In fact, the threat for tornadoes is even lower than that. The wind and hail threat is much higher, but this kind of gives you an idea of what to expect tonight. So yeah, it's happening at night. This isn't a night where you need to sleep downstairs or be super concerned about tornadoes in the middle of the night. I would definitely tell you if that was the case. I would always tell you, make sure you charge up your phone, have the WCNC weather app, have the volume turned up just in case some freak tornado spin up or a flash flood, especially if you're in a flood prone area, especially in the mountains and foothills. That water could come up quick. That's probably going to be a bigger concern, so make sure you have those warnings turned on. We'll be on tonight at 11. I'll have an update there, and obviously I'll be online all night long. If anything should pop up, stay tuned. I'll be there if we get a whole string of warnings. Hopefully it won't be too late tonight. Chris Mulcahy's coming in as well, so we'll have you covered, and we'll ride this thing out with you. I know we're all stuck at home. We're kind of all in this together. We're all in this together as well. We'll get you through this storm over the next 12 hours, which is pretty much all that we're going to see. Have a great night, everybody. I'll see you tonight at 11.